Last year, at the abandoned hospital, I heard footsteps that never stopped. I was 32, working as a freelance photographer. I loved exploring forgotten places. When I found out about this old hospital outside of town, I felt drawn to it. People said its architecture was beautiful, but eerie. I wanted to capture its stories through my photos. I arrived as the sun was setting. The light streamed through broken windows, making strange shadows dance. The building felt alive, almost like it was watching me. I stepped inside, my feet crunching over glass and debris. My heart raced as I pulled out my camera. I set up my equipment in the main hallway. It was quiet. I thought that was normal. Then I heard it. Faint footsteps echoed in the distance. I stopped, listening hard. It could just be the building settling, I thought. Or maybe the wind? I shrugged it off. I wanted the perfect shot of the crumbling walls and rusty beds. The air felt thick, and it made me uneasy. As night fell, the atmosphere changed. The footsteps grew louder, echoing in a rhythm. 1, 2, 3, and then silence. My eyes scanned the darkness, but I saw nothing. Yet a presence lingered in the air. I tried to shake it off and resumed my photography. Moving deeper into the hospital, I stumbled upon old photographs scattered on the floor. Patients with hollow faces stared up at me. I picked one up, and it felt like those empty eyes were watching me. I dropped it, feeling a shiver run down my spine. The flickering lights above me cast strange shapes on the walls. I blinked and looked back, but the feeling didn't go away. I felt cold sweat collecting on my back as I wandered through the dim halls. This was supposed to be an adventure, but now I felt trapped. Standing in old rooms filled with dusty beds made my pulse quicken. My camera clicked, breaking the silence again. And then I heard it, louder this time. Thump, 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 getting closer. I glared over my shoulder, heart pounding. It's nothing, I kept telling myself, just the wind. When I stepped into another long hallway, I almost tripped. Those photographs were gone. I couldn't believe it. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. Then I heard it again, a whisper, soft but clear. I couldn't understand the words, but it felt like a plea. My breath quickened as I scanned the room. I raised my camera, ready to capture whatever was there. Suddenly, I heard a voice clearly ask, "Why are you here?" I turned, expecting someone to be standing behind me, but the hallway stretched empty. My heart raced, a loud drum in my ears. I looked back, and those footsteps continued. Thump, thump, thump. I needed to leave. The shadows felt like they were closing in, heavy with lost souls. I shouted, "Who's there?" Panic bubbled inside me. I stumbled into a room, glancing around. Then I felt it, a cold breath on my neck. I turned quickly, but no one was there. The whisper returned, louder this time. I was not alone, and I didn't want to find out what was waiting for me in the dark. I backed up against the wall, my heart in my throat. The darkness pressed around me. I turned my flashlight on, hoping to illuminate the shadows. The beam flickered, cutting through the gloom for just a second. The space looked empty, but the whispers didn't stop. They twisted around me like a cold breeze. I couldn't make out the words, but they felt urgent, pleading for attention. I stepped back in the dim light, trying to find the source. There was a sudden clatter down the hall, like something heavy being knocked over. "Hello?" I called out, voice trembling. My gut told me to run, but curiosity anchored me in place. I had to know what was happening. My camera hung heavily around my neck as I slowly crept toward the sound. Each step felt like entering the mouth of danger. Then I saw it. In the flickering light, a figure formed at the end of the hallway. It was cloudy, almost like a mirage, but I could make out a shape. Tall, thin, with a tattered gown flowing around it. I held my breath, fingers frozen on the camera. "Why are you here?" it echoed back, mimicking the voice I heard earlier. The chill that racked my body was unlike anything I had ever known. The presence swayed like it was trying to find its balance. "Please," I whispered, not knowing who I was talking to. "I just want to take photos." My voice cracked and my bravado crumbled. A voice that felt like ice shot through my veins replied simply, "You should not have come." I felt a chill race up my spine, and instincts kicked in. I turned, sprinting down the hallway from where I came. I needed to escape. No more exploring, no more photography. Just get out. But something was wrong. The familiar path twisted in unexpected ways. Hallways that should lead back to the entrance branched off into deeper shadows. I felt disoriented and breathless. The footsteps resumed, closer now, echoing behind me. Thump, thump, thump. I tried to focus on the light of my flashlight, scrambling through rooms that seemed endless. Turning each corner felt like walking through a maze of horror. I stumbled into a wide room filled with old, rusty medical equipment. Darkness pooled in the corners, and the fading light cast eerie shapes on the walls. Then I froze. Against one wall was an old, dusty cabinet. Slowly I approached it, feeling an inexplicable urge to look inside. I pulled it open, and a wave of stale air hit me. Inside, I found more photographs, this time more recent. Faces gazed back at me, their eyes filled with fear and sorrow. I quickly flipped through them. The last photo made my heart drop. It was me, standing in the very room I was in. But I hadn't taken that photo. My breath caught. Then the whispers intensified again, a cacophony of pleas swirling in my mind. I looked up, heart racing, and the whispering came together, forming a single sentence. "Help us." I wanted to run, but I felt rooted to the spot. My mind raced with a single thought. I needed to know what happened here. With the echoes of footsteps closing in, I turned to the opened cabinet, waiting for an answer. The noise grew louder, relentless thuds echoing against the walls, and I could feel the ground trembling beneath me. I gripped the cabinet's edge, forcing myself to think. I had to uncover the truth, no matter how much fear clawed at my throat. As I stood there, I glanced back at the cabinet, trying to focus. More papers and artifacts lay piled under dust, but my instinct drove me to the shrouded presence lingering at the edge of my vision. The figure was still there, but now it hovered in place, almost expectant, as if it waited for me to make a choice. "Who are you?" I said, my voice no more than a whisper. The question felt weak, but I needed to connect with whatever this was. Maybe it could help me piece together what happened in this wretched place. The figure swayed slightly, and the whispers surged forward, flooding the room. They spoke over one another, a relentless wave of sound. "Find us. Remember." The mist shifted, and I saw the outline of faces emerge, the same frightened eyes in the photographs. I slammed my hand against the cabinet to steady myself. Grabbing a few loose papers from the pile, I searched frantically. Old patient records, timelines, and medical notes crossed my view. My hands trembled as I pieced them together. Names, dates, and diagnoses screamed at me from the age-worn pages. But one entry caught my eye. A single name stood out: Helen Thompson. The date beside it was the last patient admitted before the hospital closed. Heart pounding, I ran my finger down the line, noting the date. And then it hit me like ice water. Helen had vanished without a trace. I could feel the weight of the shadows around me tightening, the atmosphere thickening with dread. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the noise, but the whispers escalated, spiraling beyond comprehension. The presence seemed to shift, pressing closer. I took a shaky step back, reevaluating my surroundings. Suddenly, a crash vibrated through the air. I whipped around, just in time to see a heavy metal gurney roll towards me as though pushed by unseen hands. Adrenaline surged through my body. My flashlight flickered, dying almost completely, casting the room into darkness. I stumbled back into the cabinet, feeling the panic surge again. It was no longer just whispers. Now I could hear footsteps, heavy, deliberate, circling me. My time was running out. I needed, but before I could think, something darted past me, a fleeting shadow in the dark, and I barely caught a glimpse. It felt alive, filled with sorrow and anger. I had to know who they were. I took a deep breath and called out into the void. "Helen, is that you?" My voice reverberated around the room, desperate. That's when I felt it, a cold breath against the back of my neck. I froze, a chill snaking down my spine. "You called," the voice echoed softly, and in that instant I realized I wasn't alone. I turned quickly to meet the figure's gaze, but it wasn't just one. The room filled with shadows, and their pleading eyes bore down on me. I could feel their urgency tearing at my soul. And then, as if in response to my horror, the murmur changed, leaving me with a single agony-laden command. "Remember us." But how, and at what cost? The walls around me seemed to close in with each second, forcing me to confront something far more sinister than I had anticipated. As I stumbled toward the exit, I knew the only way forward was through the very secrets that haunted these halls. I burst through the heavy door, feeling the cool air hit my face like a slap. Each ragged breath I took was a reminder of how close I'd come to losing myself in that room. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, lights flickering like dying stars in the oppressive gloom of the abandoned hospital. Then I heard it again, footsteps. They echoed down the hall, slower this time, more deliberate. My heart raced as dread rolled through me. I wasn't safe yet. I had to keep moving. Against my better judgment, I turned left, drawn toward the noise. Was I crazy? I told myself to run, but curiosity combined with fear kept me rooted to the spot. I peered around the corner, hoping to catch a glimpse of the source. The hallway was empty, but another sound pierced the stillness, a low, mournful moan. The noise seemed to come from a room at the far end, its door cracked open. I hesitated, weighing my options, when something shifted just inside. A shadow flickered. I bit my lip, wrestling with the urge to turn back. But I remembered those eyes. Helen's face lingered in my mind. If I didn't find out what had happened to her, the shadows would never let me go. I took a deep breath and moved closer to the door. As I crept forward, the hinges of the door creaked as if protesting my presence. I pushed it open slowly, wincing as it revealed a small exam room cluttered with rusty instruments and shattered glass. Dust motes danced in the air, glowing softly in the beams of my fading flashlight. Then I saw it, a journal lying atop the moldy counter in the far corner, its leather cover cracked and weathered. The urge to read it was enormous. Maybe it contained answers, or at least some clues about Helen and the shadows that haunted me. I stepped inside, making sure not to make a sound. The moment I touched the journal, a cold breeze rushed past, slamming the door shut behind me. Panic surged as I pressed my back against the counter, but then I felt compelled to open it. Pages slowly revealed scrawled notes, jagged handwriting that spoke of experiments and patients whose names were eerily familiar. Helen's was among them, written in bold letters. As I read, it became clear that Helen had been subjected to ruthless treatments, pushed to her limits in a quest for scientific discovery. Desperation clawed at my heart as I turned the pages, searching for any hint of her fate, when suddenly I found a distinct entry referencing an incident, a warning that made my breath hitch. Do not enter room 312. They do not rest. Suddenly, the journal slipped from my fingers, landing open on the floor. A chill enveloped me, and the room felt charged with energy. I glanced up, and my blood ran cold. The figure loomed before me again, the same anguished expression etched across its face, but now its mouth moved silently, as if screaming against an invisible barrier. I could feel its pain, and the whispers crescendoed into a terrifying symphony of hunger and sorrow. That's when realization crashed over me like a wave. I was not just a bystander anymore. I was part of this haunting, connected by the truth I was uncovering. I had to face room 312. Before I could think twice, a force compelled me to move. The weight of history pressed against my shoulders as I rushed toward the door. I had to know what awaited me, even if it meant stepping into the depths of despair itself. The door creaked open under my trembling hand, and I stepped into the next corridor. The moment I crossed the threshold, a sense of dread settled over me like a fog. The air grew heavy, and I could hardly breathe. Room 312 had to be close. I took one cautious step after another, my flashlight beam dancing across the walls. Each flicker of light revealed peeling paint and the occasional rust stain, as if the walls themselves were weeping. I could hear the soft sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears, drowning out the whispers from the shadows around me. As I turned the corner, I spotted a door at the far end. Room 312. My stomach twisted with a potent mix of fear and determination. I moved toward it, even as my instincts screamed for me to turn back. I rationalized that I needed to confront whatever was inside. Maybe it would be a chance to help Helen. I had to try. Reaching the door, I hesitated again. It loomed before me, imposing and foreboding. The handle felt cold in my palm, and I nearly pulled away. What if? Was making a mistake? But the vision of that tortured figure filled my mind, urging me forward. Inhaling deeply, I steeled myself, twisted the handle, and pushed the door open. It swung wide, creaking in protest. Inside, the darkness felt different, richer, almost alive. My flashlight flickered, then died. Panic rose in my throat. I stumbled back, heart racing. But before I could retreat, something stirred in the room. I strained my eyes, trying to make out the shapes within the darkness. Shadows moved, coalescing into vague forms. Then I heard her. A familiar voice pierced the silence, soft but filled with anguish. "Help me." "Helen?" I called out, hope flaring in my chest even as fear gripped me. "Help us." The voices came from everywhere now, overlapping, rising in urgency. I felt warmth and coldness intermingle, the hairs on my arms standing on end. I took a hesitant step into the room, peering deeper into the dark. A chill swept over me, and I recognized the source. The remnants of a hospital bed, sheets tattered, and equipment lying abandoned, as if the staff had left in a hurry. Dread washed over me, realizing this space was equal parts confinement and despair. Just then, I saw something glinting on the floor. I knelt to examine it closer. A small, silver locket lay half buried in the dust. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside, a photo of a smiling woman stared back at me. I blinked, and suddenly, I was sure it was Helen. But before I could react, a blaring siren broke the stillness, reverberating through the corridors like a call to arms. They were awake. I shot to my feet, scrambling to get out, but something grabbed my wrist, a cold, clammy hand. My blood turned to ice as I turned to face the shadow of the woman from the locket, her eyes haunted, pleading, "Please, don't leave." Then the door began to close on its own, locking me in with the shadows that wanted more than just answers. I was trapped. I froze, the grip on my wrist tightening. The cold hand felt like iron, unyielding. My instincts screamed for me to fight, to pull away and escape, but the woman's eyes held me in place. They were deep pools of sorrow, and fear began to overshadow my thoughts. "Please," she implored, her voice echoing in the darkness. "You have to help me." "Help you? How?" I stammered, glancing toward the door as it inched closed. I could hear it grinding against the frame, sealing me in. Panic surged through me. "Find him," she whispered urgently, her grip relaxing slightly. "Find the one who did this. He's still here." A sudden noise made my heart race. A scraping sound, like nails on metal, echoed from the corners of the room. I looked around, straining to see, but the shadows seemed to pulse and stretch, alive with threat. Who did this?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady, as I searched for a way out. Before she could answer, the shadows surged forward, dark figures slipping between the furniture. I felt a chill wash over me, a sense that they were somehow angry, hungry for something. There were whispers again, chaotic and frantic, overlapping until I could barely hear my own thoughts. "Run!" she shouted, and that jolted me back to reality. I twisted my wrist free, adrenaline surging. Without thinking, I dashed to the door, slamming my shoulder against it. The grip of panic fueled my strength, and I heaved it open, stumbling into the corridor. The sirens still screamed, filling the air with urgency, pulling me forward. I ran. My heart thudded in my chest. Sounds of pursuit echoed behind me, a cacophony of groans and desperate cries. The corridor stretched endlessly, a twisting labyrinth that seemed to change with every frantic step. I followed the noise, feeling it draw me in like a moth to a flame. Then I saw something, a glimmer at the end of another hallway. Another door? Hope surged, but was quickly crushed when I felt a presence behind me. I didn't dare look back. The whispers had grown louder, almost vocalizing thoughts, desperate and frantic. "Help us!" I skidded into the new corridor, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the lights flickered above, casting long shadows that danced mockingly. I rounded a corner and stumbled into another room, heart racing, ready to barricade myself inside. But the room was empty. No furniture, no escape routes, just a single window, blocked by years of grime and decay. I turned back toward the way I came, but the corridor was gone. Panic rose again, a rising tide threatening to drown me. "What do I do?" I whispered, gripping my head in despair. "Find him," the voice echoed in my mind, and in that moment, clarity struck. I remembered the locket. It felt like a key. I needed to find that man, but where to start? That's when I heard it. Footsteps, deliberate and slow, approaching from the darkness outside. I pressed my back against the cold wall, the chill seeping through my clothes. The footsteps echoed louder now, a steady rhythm that sent tremors through my body. There was no time to think, no time to analyze. I had to act. With quiet determination, I crouched low, wrapping my fingers around the edge of the window frame. The thick layer of grime made it hard to see outside, but I carefully wiped a section clean. My heart sank when I realized I was 3 stories up, the ground below littered with broken glass and twisted metal. There was no way I could jump. The footsteps stopped abruptly, and silence filled the room. I hardly dared to breathe. My mind raced. What if it was someone searching for me? Or worse, what if it was him, the one she had warned me about? "Please," I murmured to myself, "just let me find a way out." Then, shuffling sounds slipped through the door, almost too quiet to hear. It was slow, deliberate, like the person was savoring each moment. The door creaked slightly, and I pressed my body closer to the wall, forcing myself to stay still, hoping that the shadows would conceal me. Suddenly, the door swung open. I held my breath. A figure stood silhouetted against the dim light of the corridor, unmoving. My heart pounded in my chest. I could only see the outline, but it was unmistakable. The man was tall and broad-shouldered, his presence suffocating. "Where are you?" His voice was low, almost playful, as though he was enjoying the game. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing to disappear. I couldn't stay here. I had to find another way out. I was desperate enough now to consider the window again. I glanced back, praying silently that he wouldn't see me. The figure stepped into the room, glancing around with an unsettling calmness. As he moved deeper into the shadows, I saw something glinting in his hand, a knife, catching what little light there was. Terror flared in my chest. I couldn't wait any longer. I pushed off the wall, slipping into the only other corner of the room. There, I knelt low and hidden as the figure continued to search. "Come out! I know you're in here!" he taunted, his patience wearing thin. I could feel the dread creeping in, coursing through my veins. I needed to remember the locket. It was my only chance. I closed my eyes, focusing. "Find him," I repeated. The words were no longer just a plea. They ignited a fire in me. If I could just see his face, I might know what to do next. My heart raced with the urgency of the moment, but fear gripped me too. With my pulse pounding in my ears, I glanced over just as he turned slightly, revealing a glimpse of his profile. My breath caught in my throat. It was him, just as she described. But why was he here? Why now? Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw something shift behind him, another figure. Emerging from the shadows, moving with an eerie grace, the woman from before stepped into the dim light. "Run!" she screamed. That was all the encouragement I needed. I pushed off the ground, darting toward the window, desperation fueling my speed. Just as I reached it, I heard the man shout, "What did you do?" Before I could think, I was climbing through the window, the jagged edges biting into my skin. And then I was falling into the night. I hit the ground hard, the cold gravel scraping my palms as I tumbled into a chaotic heap. Pain shot through my shoulder, but I forced myself to move, adrenaline overriding the sting. I couldn't think about the fall. I had to get away. Scrambling to my feet, I glanced back at the window, half expecting the woman from before asked, her voice trembling slightly as if she sensed the danger. I wished I could answer her, but the knot in my throat didn't let any words out. Then, without warning, the figure moved, a flash of shadow darting closer. My instinct screamed at me to bolt, but I was rooted to the spot. The doorway creaked open, and a man stepped inside, his features illuminated in the flickering firelight. His eyes swept the room, assessing us like prey. "Who's that?" he barked, pointing directly at me. "Wait, one of the others began, but the man interrupted, stepping further into the room. I quickly glanced around for an exit. The fire cast dancing shadows, and I could see other faces turning towards me, some fearful, others curious. I didn't understand why they weren't running. Didn't they see the danger? "Get out," the newcomer snapped, stepping toward me. "Now!" Before I could react, the woman in the tattered jacket stepped in front of me. "He's not a threat. You don't understand." The man narrowed his eyes, sizing us both up. I said, "Get out. You don't know what you're dealing with." My heart sank. The tension escalated, an electric charge in the air. I felt trapped between them, without any idea what would come next. "I just need to hide," I murmured, my voice tiny. "He's after me." The man glanced back at the door, and I saw his face soften for just a brief moment. "He's not here for you. He's here for us." A shiver ran down my spine. What do you mean? He wasn't making sense. My mind raced with questions as I tried to piece together this new information. Is there a way out? Just then, a crashing sound erupted from outside, splintering my thoughts. Something heavy thudded against the entrance. The group jumped at the noise, panic surging through the already tense atmosphere. "Get to the back," the woman ordered. I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted toward the narrow corridor behind the group, ducking low to avoid the encroaching chaos. I felt the world warp around me, a surge of adrenaline pushing me forward. I didn't look back. As I slipped into the shadows, the sound of the entrance being forced open echoed behind me. The man shouted something, but I was beyond waiting. I was fueled by desperate determination, dodging debris and weaving through the dim space. Rounding another corner, I stumbled into a small room, the air thick with dust and neglect. The door behind me burst open, and before I could think, I spun around, my heart thumping against my ribcage. That's when I caught sight of him, the man from before, moving with purpose and power. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to become one with the dark. I couldn't afford to move. I had nowhere left to run. The wall was cold against my back as I fought to slow my breathing, every ounce of panic suffocating me. I could hear his footsteps growing nearer, echoing off the rotting walls, each thud pounding in sync with my racing heart. There was no escape. I was cornered, both literally and metaphorically, and the weight of hopelessness threatened to pull me under. "What do you want?" I whispered into the silence, desperate for an answer that wouldn't come. Through a crack in the door, I saw him pass by, a hulking silhouette against the dim glow of the alley outside. He moved with a calm assurance that made me sick to my stomach. It was as if he was savoring the hunt. "No one knows you're here," he called, voice low and taunting. "You're just another ghost in this forgotten place." I clamped my mouth shut to stifle the urge to scream. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but I couldn't not know what had happened to Helen. Those eyes, those pleading whispers, they wouldn't leave me alone. Suddenly, the door caught my eye. It was solid, heavy, but perhaps my only way out. Carefully, with every ounce of courage I could muster, I inched toward it. Moving back into the shadows felt like inviting danger, but the fear of remaining still was even greater. As I pressed against the door, feeling its weight and the freezing draft beneath it, I caught a glimpse of something reflecting in the faint light, a sphere of silver glinting like a beacon. It was the locket. It hung from a chain near the doorknob. In a flash, I reached for it, my fingers brushing against cold metal. Just as I grasped it, a voice gasped, "You shouldn't have taken that!" The air went still, and my grip faltered. I froze, clutching the locket tightly, as the chilling realization of a presence filled the space around me. "Those who held it were never meant to remember," the voice insisted, thick and haunting. It was the same as before, layered with so much sorrow, I felt my heart ache for the unseen woman. "I have to remember," I shouted, the determination rising within me. "You need my help, right? You're still here because of him." But the coldness remained, and the figure faded from my view, leaving me alone once more. The footsteps resumed, growing louder, the door rattling slightly under the pressure. Panic surged, and I burst from the corner, flinging the door open, calling into the empty corridor. "Whoever you are, I'm done hiding!" The darkness pressed against me, but I pushed forward, expecting confrontation. The corridor, bathed in shadows, felt layered, alive. I could almost hear whispers again, this time clearer, urging me onward. "Find him, remember." The words echoed through my mind as I sprinted down the hall, fueled by my own need to confront the truth. I could sense his presence behind me, closing in, each step a reminder that I didn't have much time left. Desperately searching for room 312, I pushed open every door, praying the shadows would keep me safe long enough to find the answers. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, pounding louder than any noise the crumbling hospital could produce. Then I saw it, a door at the end, labeled Room 312 and covered in grime. With renewed determination, I lunged for it, fighting against the weight of fear pressing down on me. I burst through the door, the room somehow dimmer than the hall. It was filled with memories, artifacts twisted with sorrow. The shadows stretched like fingers, beckoning me into the darkness. In the center stood a small, flickering light, an old lantern casting shadows that danced eerily. I approached cautiously, almost entranced by the memories swirling around me. My heart raced as I found myself face to face with a dilapidated chair, old straps still resting upon its arms. "Help us," the figures echoed again, voices colliding like soft thunder. I was no longer alone in my mind, the shadows filled with tortured souls seeking closure. Just then, he filled the doorway, standing tall and dark against the light. "You should have never come," he warned, voice laced with malice. I gripped the locket, its weight in my palm grounding me. "You're the one who needs to remember," I shouted, feeling frenzied with urgency, each echo of the whispers driving me on. "What did you do to her?" He stepped into the room, shadows clinging to him, and the room felt like it might collapse under the weight of the tension. She was an experiment. This isn't just a hospital, it was a prison. As he stepped fully inside, something shifted in the air. A wave of energy connected us all. I could feel it, the memories of those who once lived in this space crashing around me, flooding me with visions of the past. The experiments, the tragedy, it all unfolded before me. The lantern flickered wildly, and the cries of loss sharpened. "You're a part of it now," he hissed, growing more agitated by the moment. "No," I shouted, "I am not afraid of you. You can't hold me here." The voices propelled me forward as shadows encircled him. "Remember," they demanded in unison. I stepped toward him, grounding myself with the locket, tethering it to the truth I was coming to understand. "I will find a way to free you." With that declaration, everything shifted. The air crackled as if an unseen barrier was shattered, and I felt the weight of history swirling around me. Could he truly be the captor of all these lost souls? But even as I battled the shadows, a nagging thought plagued me. Who was I to confront the past? Would I even succeed in breaking the ties that bound them all? As the shadows swirled, I closed my eyes, knowing some questions would remain unanswered. I needed to forge ahead, slip away from this twisted reality. I had one chance, and I wasn't going to let fear hold me back any longer. With the locket clutched tightly, in one hand and defiance burning in my heart, I leaped into the unknown, hoping to help those who lingered and remember those they lost. The echoes followed me, unforgiving yet filled with hope, urging me forward into the abyss that awaited beyond room 3112.